Hello, and welcome to the preview for at least what is currently and potentially called Week 4 of the NFL season, which may well become known as the preview for Week 1 of the 2021 season. We might throw to the undoubted, undisputed king of watching games of football, Fui. So give us a big intro to the pressing issues that are facing us in picking which games to watch. Because I know that you have to be very selective because you have a low tolerance for watching multiple games of football at once. What are some of the things that are playing into your mind when you look at the upcoming slate of games?
Well, look, I look at Friday and I thought, I don't even think there should be a game on Friday. It's not even worth watching. Now I look at the early games. I'm look. What am I wanting in a football game? I'm wanting good players. I don't see any at the football team, so I'll probably skip that one. Steelers and Titans would probably be my go-to. So there might be a little disease going around that might put a stop to that. Chargers, Bucks, no. Seahawks, Dolphins. Well, Dolphins nixed that one. There's not really a whole lot.
Are you really going to read out the name of every team in the NFL?
No, I've stopped there, but I think the pick of the early games might be the Colts and Bears. Just hopefully see the Bears lose.
Blackie, because I know you're going to get up early because you'll be so distressed by the Broncos-Jets game that you'll be desperate to watch something that resembles a higher level of football than Pee-wee football.
They even slept this time.
What's your pick? And do you really think that Fui gave
read them all out?
Do you really think that Fui gave adequate coverage to what is the key issue about the whole week of games?
Is that there's too many 3 a.m. games, Eastern Standard Time?
We might not have a week.
You both seem to be presuming that we're going to have games.
Oh, mate, there's too much money. They'll force it through. NFL's already told the Titans to get ready to play. You know what? I can see a silver lining. There's a chance that Broncos might be the only team to be 0-4 by the time the season ends on Saturday. Therefore, get the number one pick, and the world's our oyster. But in all seriousness,
you'll do just enough to make sure that Gase gets his one win, so the Jets retain him as coach. Yeah,
absolutely, that'd be the dream. But I would say, in terms of games that interest me, I'll go against the grain for Fui and say, to me, the Titans are one of the most boring teams to watch in the NFL. They just don't excite me at all. It'll probably be rookie watch, or potentially watch if Lamar Jackson's going to bounce back against a pretty solid defensive line in the football team. Outside of that, I'll be also potentially tuning into the Vikings and Texans to see if Justin Jefferson put in a repeat performance.
Brash, I know you're hanging out for the Thursday night football. It's going to be a high-quality game, that one.
26 degrees and sunny in Melbourne, mate. That's all you need to know about what I'll be doing on Friday.
Watching the game outside.
That's right. The good news is US daylight saving has ended.
Yes.
So, it ended just in time to make sure I got 3 a.m. starts for San Francisco playing in New York. And I think our start's a week after that. So, all good. Games I'll be watching, I will be getting up at 4 a.m. to watch Cleveland-Dallas.
Really? Seriously?
Yeah.
That was my pick of the game of the early rounds too. Well done.
That's one, but not because I want to see good football. I just want to laugh at who makes more mistakes.
It'll be the two most boneheaded defenses in that early slate, and you could potentially see 90 points scored.
The biggest mistake is waking up to watch that game.
But if you have to wake up to watch a game, which one would you pick though?
Look, I've answered that question. It's Cleveland Dallas. I think this is one of those mornings where it'll be pretty well red zone till 7:25, because both of the late Sunday morning game or Sunday afternoon games are games I will be tuning into to watch somehow. I'm really keen to see Buffalo and to see the Death Star. and I want to see what New England can do against Kansas City, because if there's one team that maybe can scheme something, it'll be them. So I'm looking forward to those two games. I have the primetime games, including, even though it's my own team, I've just nothing encounters for me.
NFC least getting yet another bloody primetime game that they
Yeah.
do not deserve. If there was ever an argument for flexing primetime games during the season, week to week, this week's it. There's no freaking way the Eagles should have a primetime game. Haven't earned it, don't deserve it, and the ratings are going to crash, and Trump's going to say, see, people aren't watching football because of the kneeling. When actually, no, people aren't watching football because the primetime freaking game is a boring as batshit, uncompetitive, uninteresting game that would only have been interesting and would have been seriously worth watching if there were real Philadelphia fans in the stadium and the game was in Philadelphia, because then you'd see some interesting and very creative methods of throwing batteries and pipes and other things at the Eagles' own players. But anyway,
Maybe he means it's because the Eagles franchise is on its knees.
you're in fine form tonight. That's the kind of line I expect from Philly. Just gently though, can I say that the other game that is potentially interesting in that early, well, two potentially interesting quarterback showdowns. Fitzmagic is probably the one quarterback against that fairly porous Seahawks defense. He could potentially outpass if he has one of those Fitzmagic magical days. He could potentially outthrow Wilson and just be more arse than class and somehow pull off a win. And
I don't believe he's played two good games in a row, though.
Oh, no, I'll give you. Like, it would be, we talked about Mahomes being the month of September quarterback, best ever. If Fitzmagic can actually get the beard together and string two good games together, that's the equivalent for him. I've been playing for 17 years for 12 different teams, and I finally had two good games in a row. Sort of, achievement, which almost guarantees him an MVP when he has two good games in a row, really. But the other one is that Colts-Bears game. Foles against Rivers. Oh, gotta love that game.
I love the sound of that. Are you kidding? You get to watch Jonathan Taylor, Naheem Hines, but I also want to see what Foles does and see if he lights a spark under Chicago. Jimmy Graham looked a little bit better. Allen Robinson looked a lot better. I want to see if Anthony Miller picks up any additional yardage or targets through having BDN behind center. I'm very interested. And also with Tariq Cohen doing his knee, it's going to increase the workload in Montgomery. I think we'll see pretty quickly if he's the real deal or not.
Yeah. And to be fair to Montgomery too, he had a real, what I consider to be the most scary incident from week 2 in amongst all that injury carnage, where he had that thing where he was basically dumped upside down and almost, head slammed like in the old world, WWE type style. But it was a 300-pound lineman that was dumping him on his head, and somehow he got up and walked away. I thought for sure he'd be out for weeks, and I can't believe that sort of a hit doesn't give you residual lingering effects. It's just such a massive incident. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I was being half sarcastic, but I do think that Colts, Philip Rivers still has the capacity to turn out sparkling offensive performances. And that Bears defense, if there's a single team in the league, Khalil Mack to one side, that has a really porous defense, it is the Bears against the right sort of quarterback. So, but equally, they can turn around and intercept you 7 times,
There's a number of games here that you could, if they're close, or they're what I'd call lukewarm games. Like there's reasons, there's a lot of reasons to watch some of these games, and there's just as many reasons not to. I don't know. It's a funny round.
You'd be happy though, because there's at least 3 afternoon games, and that's a big driver for you on a Sunday.
There's two that the Buffalo Vegas game I definitely want to watch, and the New England Kansas game, probably the first half before it starts getting out of hand. But definitely I really want to see this Buffalo team up close and personal, and play by play, rather than just switching around the channels.
Hey Fooey, is Derek Carr the real deal?
He needs to be this week.
I'm in the minority. I actually don't mind Carr as a quarterback. Yeah, he does have.
You understand we're talking about Derek Carr, not David Carr.
I like Derek more than I like David. Yeah, look, he is a little bit limited, but is he a quarterback that could win a Super Bowl with the right team around him? I think he is.
As the coach?
That's a different story, but
Because he
yeah,
ain't going to win it as quarterback.
no. Trust me on this one. He could, but it has to be the exact right team. I'm talking like Trent Dilfer winning a Super Bowl kind of thing.
So the other team gets covered the day before the Super Bowl, and the game still goes ahead. And he's not playing. There's no other team on the field except the Raiders.
Look, I really put Carr in my kind of, I would say, I wouldn't say top 10, but I'd put him in the top half. Yeah,
in a year in which there are 8 winless teams, that's a really big call. That's a top half of excellence. That really is.
He's not horrible.
Yeah, but have a look at some of the 0-3 teams. Their quarterbacks are okay.
There's some bloke called Deshaun Watson that I think is a bit of all right.
He goes okay. Cousins is reasonable, not great. Darnell's a train wreck. The legend of Ripon starts this week. Who are the other 0-3s? Atlanta. Well, they got Matt Ryan. That's not their quarterback's not their problem unless he's changing the plays.
Danny Dimes.
Danny Dimes.
I'm glad you guys all rate Danny Dimes. I've said from day one I thought he's a complete abysmal wrong draft pick, and I'd stand to be proven wrong. Anyway, so yeah, Brash. I mean, what do you think? What is Derek Carr the guy? And if not, who the bloody hell have they got?
It's not Mariota, is it?
Yeah, it's not going to be Mariota.
Oh, so, wait, maybe they'll trade for Bortles from the Broncos.
But
they've got
sorry, mate, go.
Peterman. They've got Peterman.
Oh, how could I forget the excellence, the unique statistical experience that is the Peterman trade?
Well, he didn't look too bad 2 weeks ago.
What, in pre-game warm-ups?
No, in
clipboard action.
On Monday Night Football, looked all right, didn't he?
Yeah, he's not a horrible quarterback.
He's not a bad quarterback. I think, I think he cops a lot of criticism. I think his biggest problem is he won't force the ball down the field, right? But he's not the only quarterback that suffers from that. But is it any coincidence that he looked really good on Monday Night Football in week 2 when Waller went berserk and Waller got held in check by Belichick because that's what Belichick does, right? And he didn't look so good the following week. So I don't know. I must admit I don't stay up at night worrying about the Vegas quarterbacks. There's plenty of other things I'd stay awake thinking about in Vegas, but not so much their quarterback ratio. I think they're okay. Not stellar, but not.
What's their running game like, do you reckon?
Vegas is fine. Unless you're going to tell me Jacobs is in corona protocols or something like that.
No, in all seriousness, and this was actually part of my key questions for the week. I was saying before that I thought the league's evolved where most teams have more than one weapon in all aspects of their game. The Raiders, for me, really stand out as a team that's gone all out and drafted like 97 different wide receivers every year. But it's almost like Jacobs is it, in much the same way as for the New York Giants, Saquon was it, and now Saquon's out. They ain't got shit for a running game, which then immediately completely cripples them because nobody can win without a balance. But as Andy Reid's finally worked out in bloody Kansas City, you can't just pass. You got to have a balance. Yeah, I'm just interested to see. For what it's worth, I think they got all their eggs in one basket, and they're one of the few teams that seem to have that weakness. The Giants being the other glaring example at the moment. Well, that was a good question. That was well received by the rafter of turkeys.
I think that's it. I think Carr can, when it comes down to it, he can win games if the running game isn't firing. I think he's got more than enough arm talent to do that. So I honestly, I completely disagree. I think it's I think they've got the makings of a pretty good offense, and talent-wise is not an issue. Attitude or coaching might be an issue, but talent-wise, I don't think there is.
Do I need to keep asking questions?
If we're still talking about the Raiders, I think there's far worse teams out there. To be honest, I think they've done pretty well with their recent draft picks. It's as we talked about last week. They're one of those teams where at least you know what they're trying to achieve. I think they are putting things in place to give Carr every opportunity, and if he can't do it, it's a pretty good opportunity for someone else to go into. Wouldn't surprise me if Carr have 1 foot out the door. They've gone to a new city. You know, they potentially need a face of the franchise. You know, it wouldn't surprise me if they were a team that could potentially try and move up in the draft. Look, I think we need to allocate some more time to the Thursday night game. And I'll go on record and say Broncos Bulldogs.
That's a very good call.
I agree with that take. I might put maximum confidence in this one and blow myself out of the competition early.
I've got a question for everyone. Who's your upset of the week?
Eagles over 49ers.
Here we go.
You always no, come on, give us a real one.
Atlanta over Green Bay.
Oh, I said a real one.
A real one. Atlanta over Green Bay.
Can I just say that was going to be my pick, and I'll tell you why. That Green Bay offense is just on a knife's edge. They were behind to the freaking Lions, and Atlanta still has Matt Ryan, and they get this shit together, and Matt Ryan can put points on the board. And Atlanta also has the capacity to induce turnovers. They don't do it very often, but when they do, and if they get it on against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. So just to expand on my prediction, so going into on Monday morning, Fui's going to wake up 10 points in front of the Giblets and think he's home, and then Hayden Hurst is going to come out and score 3 times, catching 3 Matt Ryan touchdown passes for us to swamp past you in the straight.
Can I just give you a red hot tip? If we're 10 points behind going into that game, we're going to beat him by 40 points because we also have Rodgers.
True. Now Rodgers sits.
Yeah, let's just not bother playing a quarterback.
That's right.
That's a bit like a Melbourne Cup handicap, really. Yeah.
Seriously, I think my upset of the week, in the who cares fashion, Miami at Seattle. Seattle at Miami.
I thought about that. Mine's going to be Detroit taking down the Saints, though.
That's what I was going to say as well.
Yeah, of course.
Any chance you could actually have your own opinion, Fui?
Okay, well, here's my opinion for overrated game of the week is the Chiefs and Patriots, because I reckon the Chiefs will just do a number on them from the get-go. I'm talking 45 points to like 10, something really ridiculous like that.
My serious pick for upset of the week is Cam Newton to beat the Chiefs.
There we go. Beautiful.
And note that I said Cam Newton, not the Patriots, because last week, until some freaking idiot on the Baltimore sideline decided to change the fundamentals of their approach to offensive football, you saw just how vulnerable that Chiefs defense is to a mobile, and let me know if I used the right terminology, a mobile running quarterback who is also reasonably able to take decent hits and keep getting up and running on. And if there's one
statuesque, but not a statue.
Exactly. And robust in an Iron Man / Deadpool /
my only issue with that is I reckon the Ravens have a much better supporting cast than the Patriots.
N'Keal Harry's pretty good.
I wouldn't. Would you rate him above Brown? I wouldn't.
Oh God, yeah, certainly above. And I thought that was interesting. The Chiefs basically shut Hollywood Brown right out of the game, and they don't have a runner. Who's their running back? Gus Edwards.
Exactly.
They got the Ravens have the quarterback, and they are super one-dimensional. And for all their failings, for all their faults, one thing Belichick does better than just about any other coach in the league consistently is tear the shit out of anybody that's one-dimensional. If you're going to come up against Belichick, you better have a gadget play like Philly Special, or you better have something you've never trotted out before that you turn up. Because if you just turn up with the same old game plan, he's going to know you. He puts more time into tape than anybody else in the league.
Or you better have the best quarterback we've ever fucking seen.
Which is not Lamar Jackson.
I'm talking about Mahomes.
Yeah, but the Chiefs are arguably, if there's some injury to Mahomes, who do they trot out? You know.
Oh, no doubt. If Mahomes is not
here, we get the qualifiers. Oh, if there's injuries, my tip changes.
When has my tip ever changed?
When
Mahomes?
when the AE website had a flaw in it from Jeff Dunn's website skills, and you could edit during games about 37 times.
Mahomes is the best quarterback I have
We
ever
still only
seen.
got 32 points.
And I have no doubt that he will absolutely tear that New England defense a new one. Belichick or no Belichick, friggin' Cam Newton or no Cam Newton, doesn't matter.
All right.
All right.
I got $50 to add to the $50 that I owe each of you
All right.
because Wentz was still in the game
Still
at
standing.
3/4 time. I got another 50 just for Philly, not for the rest of you, on that Patriots win. All right, so here we go. Anything else, Blackie? Come on, usually got some good questions.
Yeah, I do. I want to know. I might abstain, but I won't be able to. Who everyone's rookie of the week's going to be?
All right.
Jalen Hurts.
Who's playing who?
I'm going to go Antoine Winfield to pick off Herbie, and then the offensive side, I think J.K. Dobbins is going to have a breakout game.
For me, it's CD Lamb. I think he'll finally deliver. I think that, as American Crow would tell you, that Brown secondary is
Another shit one.
Yeah. And I just think Dak's been in not spectacular form, because Dak's never in spectacular form, because Dak's not spectacular, but he's been getting the job done. And CD Lamb will be his go-to target, and it'll just shatter the Browns. Who are you picking, Brash?
I think Herbert will play well. Defensive rookies. I must admit, I'm not that.
Oh, do we get 2 picks, Blackie?
Defense and offense.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to have to take a pass on the defensive one. There's nothing I can, without sounding like a homer, there's no one I can.
I'll pick
really
Okuda
single out.
for the Lions. I thought he was super impressive, and I think he'll build on that game.
Yep. Derrick Brown's also been very good.
Yeah, agree with that. Yep. What about you, quarterback whisperer? Don't say bloody Joe Burrow for the 97th week in a row.
No, I'm actually thinking. I think Jefferson might have another good week. I think it's the Texans aren't a strong defensive backfield. Whether they have Earl Thomas or not. So I think he could be in for another good one. Defensive I'm probably struggling with a little bit. Just looking through. I think I'll have to pass on the defense for the moment.
Can I gently suggest, Brasher, you may appreciate this suggestion. Perhaps not rookie of the week offensively, but most improved rookie player of the week. And Blackie, you can explain why this is perhaps a good pick for such a bet. Philly, you might want to listen in because your betting strategy could use some improvement. Most improved rookie of the week, because let's face it, it's a pretty freaking low bar. On the defensive side, am I wrong to nominate Ross Blacklock for that award?
If he makes it through the game, improvement.
Exactly. So, Ross, how's your career going as a rookie? I got ejected again. I finished the game, but you didn't get on the field. But I didn't get ejected.
I put in a 4-quarter effort this month.
Or even better, this week I didn't piss off JJ Watt.
What a dick. I think in that vein, we could also probably say Isaiah Simmons going to potentially be played out of position, but I foresee that he won't be giving away 2 home run touchdowns.
Brasher, question?
No, I don't have.
All right, I got one for you. What would your view be on the number of offensive holding penalties called this year compared to previous years?
Way lower.
Yep.
Didn't ask you, bloody expert. I asked Brasher.
I thought it was forever.
I thought we already had this conversation that we said that it was lower.
Yeah, but I'm asking for a number.
Oh fuck!
Do you have the answer?
Oh, how odd! I do have the answer.
Oh, awesome.
In the first
40% lower.
42.
In the first 3 weeks of the year, the previous 3 years, weeks 1 to 3, on average, 156 holding penalties on the offense. This year, weeks 1 to 3, 75, which is almost exactly half.
That's unbelievable.
You know what's even more unbelievable? 3 of those 75 offensive holding penalties were in overtime against the Eagles.
Can
So
I
you
tell you
take them out, and the pattern is even more pronounced.
another reason or another unintended consequence of that is that Garrett Bowles is currently the 5th best rated tackle in the league.
A combination of no holding penalties being called, plus the fact he's not actually hurt himself yet.
And his opponent doesn't have time to get to the quarterback because Elijah Wilkinson's got blokes been there 5 minutes ago.
Half as many. Yeah.
It's an amazing stat. It's an amazing stat.
I reckon the false start one would be the same. The same sort of 50% off. Because no penalty kills drives like holding. No penalty comes close to killing drives like holding.
So, two other stats, because I know Phil.
While we're talking about that, one thing they have started paying more is intentional grounding. At least that's what it's felt like to me, which should be one of the biggest drive killers. Because we've seen high-profile quarterbacks get away with it for years without naming names. You just scratch your head sometimes.
Yep. Yeah,
so it's good they've started paying that.
Yeah, that's one that I'm really glad they have, because I noticed that last week. I think a couple of the commentators were talking about it in 2 different games. And what's good about them calling that, it's a nice counterbalance to this roughing the passer rubbish that has become more prevalent as well. So yeah, that's everything's stacked, because a lot of these penalties, the one that really annoys me are those 5-yard holding penalties on 3rd and 45. They're the ones that nothing drives you more crazy when you think your defence can trot off the field and there's a 5-yard holding on 3rd and forever. And I felt like I've seen a lot of those this year.
There is one worse one, roughing the kicker.
Oh, yeah, roughing the kicker. Yeah. So yeah, the defensive holding, but that blows me away, BPG, that it's half as many holding to this point of the season. And again, no training camp or shortened training camp off season. Offensive lines, less time to gel. You expect more penalties.
And let's face it, there's absolutely no suggestion. Unlike the defensive side of the ball, where I think when we reviewed the draft and we talked about what was coming out of college, we were universally talking about the amazing talent on the defensive rush side that colleges were turning out. Just phenomenal players. Obviously, Chase Young was the highest profile example, but even in round 2 and round 3, really high quality rushers coming out of many colleges across the country. I don't think there's any argument that the offensive line side of college football has just almost evaporated in terms of transferable to the NFL skills. And yet, as you said, no preseason, no suggestion that college football is suddenly turning out ready-made plug-and-play offensive linemen. Even Andrew Thomas is struggling in New York, and he's probably been the best college football offensive lineman for 10 years.
But they're not holding.
And they're not holding. And that's just phenomenal. I mean, that has to be an officiating change. So, Philly, go ahead, mate.
And it is a passing league.
Absolutely.
Right. So, 60 Burrows. What Philly? What's Burrows doing? 55 passes average a week already.
Close to, yeah.
The guy's going to wear out his shoulder before he actually gets competitive.
So, just a very quick thought regarding the holding penalties, though. And maybe you already know BBG because you seem to have your stats ready. Are the amount of sacks down this year also then?
Nope.
No.
Not on par for, and that is one stat that varies enormously between teams. I talked already about how Burrows, your fanboy, was sacked 8 times in one game. So with such a split between, and I mean Danny Dimes is in the same bucket. In 1 week, Driscoll copped more sacks than Locke copped in the previous 2 weeks. So it's a little hard because we've only had 3 weeks and there've been a number of quarterback changes for certain teams. It's a little hard to read too much into, like, it'd be better to come back in 3 weeks and then I think you'd get a better read of whether it's a genuine, the same as or more than previous years. But at the moment, at least on the total number, it's a little bit down. but not markedly down. And in terms of average sacks per game, it's not bad.
Yeah.
But Phil, because you're pretty much in touch with what's happening in the league, and I think you clearly watch at least the 2-minute YouTube highlights from 3 weeks ago. You'd have a pretty clear opinion on how kicking's been going this year. I mean, I think we can all agree on that, can't we? How's kicking been going this year?
Well, depends who you are, but yeah, in general, pretty poorly.
Blackie, you'd agree with that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think people have been a bit shaky, but shout out to Goskowski for digging himself out of what I thought would be the end of his career.
So we're all sort of pretty agreed on that. Yeah.
Yep.
Nearly.
Blow us away with the stat. I mean,
Nah, nearly.
It's been patchy. Like Butker's obviously been really good. Tucker's Tucker. Seen a few missed pats. But I don't know if the field goal kicking's been as bad. I think there's been a few point afters missed.
There's been, I would have said, if you'd asked me, I would have said week 1 was very ordinary. Week 2 was actually good. Is it just me, or a field goal kickers just kicking 50-yard field goals like nobody's business anymore? Like it used to be.
We've had more misses inside the 45 than ever.
Yep.
And more mades from over 50 than ever.
Yeah, that's what my perception.
The pace for field goals total, the record ever in the history of the NFL is 1.69 field goals made per game, and that only happened once. The next highest average across all games in a season was 1.5, and both of those were many years ago when the field goal was almost like rugby, and the field goal was your primary scoring opportunity. If we see the trend we're seeing so far this year, there will be a new record, which will be 1.7 field goals per game.
Is that per team or just per game?
Per game across the whole set of, so for any team averaged across. Now, there are teams that are on pace. There are 4 teams. Obviously, Butker's performance kind of skews the stats, but there are 4 teams that are on pace to absolutely destroy that record in terms of their own individual team across the year. I don't believe they'll sustain that. I think that'll drop back a bit. But it's just a phenomenal, given the general perception is that kicking has been atrocious. It's remarkable when you look at the stats. Actually, it's been really, really pretty consistent, tracking across even all teams, even the Eagles, even some of the other shitty teams like Goskowski's Titans are actually on pace. He had a crap first week, but he's been bloody good since. They're on pace to break all sorts of team records for the most field goals kicked for their team in a year. It's really quite phenomenal how the actual stats are totally at odds with the public perception. 2-point conversions. We will set a record this year for the number of 2-point conversion attempts and the number of successful 2 points. Now, obviously, that's a less phenomenal stat because 2-point conversions haven't exactly been around for 70 years, but still interesting. And the run that blew me away a little bit was receiving touchdowns. But I guess that just reflects what we all know, which is that the running game's dying. For whatever reason, people are finding it easy to throw a touchdown pass to an unmarked tight end and give the ball to the fullback and say, go get me some yards. And that is what it is, I guess. But the last thing that I want to statistically draw your attention to, in the little chat thing, I've posted a little picture, a snip, which is average points a game. So if you want to bring that up and have a quick look at it, over the last 11 years or 12 years, I think it is. Most points ever in a season was nearly 11,987 points scored in 2013. The first 3 weeks in that season, people put up 2,100 points. This year, in the first 3 weeks, 2,446 points. So we are on par to absolutely destroy that record of number of points scored in a season. If they keep this scoring rate up, they could potentially get to 15,000 points in a regular season, which would just be extraordinary. I mean, along with the offensive holdings.
2013 had one of the greatest offenses of all time.
Absolutely. And also due to a complication of some key injuries and the hangover effects of, I guess you'd call it either free agency holdouts or strikes or a combination of things, there were a number of really key defensive players that held out and were in contract disputes and things. So, yeah, it was what I've always regarded as a uniquely skewed year to the offense. But we're going to maybe everything's going to change. Maybe COVID will destroy the officiating and we'll get some officials that know what the frick they're doing. But we're on track to just destroy that record. And bear in mind, that's in a year when there's 8 teams that don't have a damn win. And there's a number of those 8 teams that might not have a win, but fuck, they're scoring. They're scoring
I'll
harder
tell you
than
what
Fui.
else.
They're scoring harder than Fui does down in the ladies' day at the races.
That's one thing I've noticed. I don't know if everyone agrees, but I feel like teams are going for it on 4th and short more as well. And I feel like that probably plays into it because
Except when you punt for the tie.
you don't
Most
back your
coaches.
defense when you've sacked someone 8 times and they've punted 3 times in OT. You wouldn't back your defense.
I think there's definitely a trend of aggressive coaching for the most part. Take away good old Doug. In general this year, it's kind of the same for the 2-point conversion stat, which also kind of leads back to the kicking stat. There's going to be more 2-point conversions if you're missing extra points because you want to make up the point that you missed earlier in the game. But also with the aggressive coaching going for more points, and obviously it all kind of ties in all those stats, doesn't it? Or not?
Yeah, it does, and I still think it's just rubbish defensive backfield as well that are the main contributor that we've spoken about. As Blackie said, I'm certainly, there are teams on their opening drive on their own 40 going for it on 4, not even thinking twice about it, and I'm talking half a yard, 5, 6, 7 yards to go, still going for it. You're seeing, and there's some things that are just like disappearing, like those pooch punts, 20-yard pooch punts, and that. Teams are just saying, the difference between punting and having to go field goal is 1 first down, 1 10-yard set it down. So why wouldn't we go for it rather than just punt it into the end zone? Yeah, if we're on our own 35 or 40 anyway, or on the opposition's 35 or 40. So absolutely, the official. I still can't get over that offensive holding stat. That half the rate of it being what it was before to this point in time of the season. That just blows me away. Particularly we're seeing so many bomb touchdowns, so long developing plays. It's just bizarre.
And I went and clarified that stat because I didn't believe it, and I thought what that must be is a combination of 2 things, which is just kind of like random luck playing against your stat line. And I thought this was me, perhaps some of the approach to conspiracy theories from certain other members of the rafter of turkeys has rubbed off on me, but I figured that it was a skewed stat because 2 things will be happening. I thought there would be defensive pass interference being called, which cancelled out a holding penalty, and therefore nothing got recorded officially as a penalty because they cancelled each other out. And then I thought the other thing that was happening was there were offensive holding penalties during interceptions that were then being declined by the defense because they'd gotten a turnover, because there has been a reasonably high number of turnovers this year. And I thought, well, that must be what's driving it, because the declined penalties aren't being counted. Neither of those 2 things are true. In that penalty stat, they include penalties that are declined and they include penalties that are offset. So it's really quite a phenomenal, and it's not like there's a quirk in the way the stats are being recorded. It's genuine. The other thing that in the scoring, again, I was sure that that scoring's just skewed by a couple of insano games like the Falcons-Cowboys game and a few other ones where there's just been mega scoring. And I'm sure they've seen some low-scoring games. I'm sure I've seen them. And I went back, and you find me a game across any one of the matchups for the first 3 weeks where both teams have scored less than 10 points. Hasn't happened. First time in 25 years that we've had 3 weeks where nobody's had a game where the 2 teams have scored less than 10 points. And I don't know what's driving that. It's just a phenomenal. I mean, yes, we've had some pretty nice weather on the East Coast. There certainly hasn't been a lot of ugly, rainy, foggy type games, but that's not the only explanation. Last stat I'll leave you with, I've talked about how they're on track to absolutely destroy the points record for a total season. Week 2, in that little chart that I gave you, you can see that the points per game average is at 51 across week 3 for this year, which is, if you just look roughly, even Fui's limited capacity of statistical interpretation will tell you that that's a good 5 points a game higher average than we've ever achieved before in the first 3 weeks. Week 2 and week 3 are the only times in the history of the NFL that the points scored in a single week have been more than 800 points. We had 853 points scored in week 2 and 835 points scored in week 3. So my final question for the panel before I hold over to you guys, or throw over to you guys to throw out your own questions for the week. What's the total points scored for week 4? Fooey? Because this is the
Well,
one question you won't have to do much fucking research on, boys. So just pick a number.
I'll do the unders 800.
Well, I was going to say, you're basically telling me to go the overs in every game now, aren't you?
I'll say 720.
I like how I directed the question to Fooey, and the other two turkeys answered it first to give him kind of guidance and help him frame his betting market.
That's right. That's because we are well versed now in giving food.
Well,
We cover for our mate. 744.
I'm going to say we're going to break 800 again and say 801.
Yeah, I know, because on Thursday's game,
It's good.
Thursday night game, that'll be 100 there.
It could be one of those games, yeah.
Second part to the question: will there be the first game of the year where both teams score less than 10 points this week?
No, it's not a game that's going to...
Yeah, no, I can't see one.
Come on,
Do
Blackie.
both teams have to score under 10 or just one?
Yeah, that's the question. Both teams under 10.
That doesn't
No
happen
way.
very often anyway, does it?
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so.
It's happened in every season in the first 3 rounds. At least one matchup's always. You got to remember that this time of year is not exactly the prime time for football in the Florida region in particular. You often have your end of summer storms. Lots of rain, lots of damp fields.
Yeah,
No.
so
Yeah,
I'm really
no.
disappointed. I've got to say I'm really disappointed in the panel, particularly in Blackie and Fooey, because neither of them, and Brasher, I just assumed he'd jump straight on this. Neither of them said that BPG's team would score less than 10 points.
No,
No,
you said both.
both.
Both. I asked. Blackie and I both asked the same question.
Yeah, but
10 points
that's never
each.
stopped you. That's never stopped you from slagging my team, no matter how the question's framed.
Well, that's because you slag them off enough. We don't need to anymore.
So what you're saying is Philadelphia's actually going to score minus points to drag down San Francisco to under 10.
No, BPG's fantasy team.
Fantasy team. Oh, you'll do more than.
Ah.
You'll score more than 10 points. Who are you
Yeah,
playing?
Mullins.
You do realise I can't play both Rippon and Mullins in BFFL at once.
That's gonna taunt your nights until Friday. Which one of these two superstars am I going to choose?
And we can still trade you Jared Goff.
We can and we shall. First round pick next year.
GG's done a really big spin around in Empire. He suddenly wants to keep Goff and trade Brady. Ridiculous.